Lana Smith, Globe and Mail. This question is for the Premier. I wanted to ask you about Infrastructure Minister Peter Guthrie, who's ordered his department to launch an independent audit of a transaction involving Sam Maraish, flipping a piece of property at the expense of government. And Guthrie said he's notified the Auditor General of this. So in light of this action and the Globe's reporting on Maraish's part ownership of private surgical facilities that were negotiating contracts with AHS, will you order all ministers to examine their departments to identify ties to Maraish and his associates?
I should have just mentioned we didn't introduce two of the members who are here with us today. AJ Andrew Jenkins, who was on the furthest to the right, and James Anderson are also here from Fresh Start Recovery if you want to ask them questions as well. I found out about that particular transaction when Peter Guthrie did, February 18th of 2025. I think what he told the media was that this fell into a level of delegated authority protocol, meaning that it's the administration that makes these decisions. But out of an abundance of caution, he has also forwarded that to have the Auditor General have a look at it, and just look forward to seeing what the AG has to say.
So to be clear, no? You will not order all of your ministers to look into their own departments and see if there's any connections to Maraish or his associates?
Well, what we're looking for is any flaws in the procurement. We're not doing a witch hunt to try to find every single transaction that every single business has done if there is no reason to look into it. So we would ask the Auditor General to look into the procurement processes. He'll let us know if there are any concerns about procurement. And I'm sure that if there are anything that comes up while he's doing his investigations or while we are, we would do just as Minister Guthrie has.
You call it a witch hunt, but I'm a little unclear. Don't you want to know for sure if any of these very serious allegations are true, and especially in the context of some of your ministers having accepted gifts from Maraish?
Of course we want to know if it's true.
So why not do these?
That's why we have two investigations that we are doing. Number one is going to be having this shared file so that the materials are generated at the same time, going to the Auditor General, and we're closing in on having an independent third party do the review on our behalf. Absolutely, we're interested. And if there are any additional issues that come up, we'll do exactly as Minister Guthrie did, and we'll flag them and put them to the AG to have a look at it. But you have to understand, like, this government has billions and billions and billions of dollars of procurement that gets done through independent agencies and that gets done through independent processes managed by the bureaucracy. Politicians don't get involved in that. We have processes in place so that those can be followed. And if there's some evidence that they're not being followed, we need to fix it.
Thank you, Lana. We're not doing this again. That was already a question and a follow-up. You have a lot of your colleagues there behind you.
I'm hoping this can be about the announcement today about compassionate intervention.
Sure.
I just want to know, there wasn't actually any explanation in this announcement today, at least not any specific detail about how exactly these treatment facilities will work. So I'm hoping you can take us through a little bit of, like, for example, is there dissuasion panels like there are in Portugal? Do families make this decision? Are police involved? Basically, what takes somebody from perhaps being on the streets and then through what process to get to one of these facilities?
So the announcement today is about $180 million for the two facilities, Northern and Southern Compassion Intervention facilities. And the legislation's forthcoming. We want to make sure we're not like British Columbia in that we're not going to put the cart before the horse. This is a healthcare policy. This isn't a justice policy. We're making sure we build out a full and robust continuum of care. And we've been working on it to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's. So that legislation's forthcoming. I can tell you at a high level, what I've already said publicly is that there will be the ability for family members, guardians, peace and law enforcement officers and healthcare professionals to petition. The petition will then go into a commission. That commission is going to have a responsibility to actually verify that civil liberties are being protected, that this is a bona fides case that would meet the absolute highest standard of the most extreme examples of destruction in our society and in one's life because of the addiction. And then these facilities will be a first touch point with secure treatment capacity that integrate into a wider continuum of care when it comes to addiction treatment.
Hi there, Jordan Canagan with CTV News. For the minister, you're named in the statements of claim from the former AHS CEO as being, quote, very concerned about an internal AHS investigation and audit. Is that accurate? Were you concerned about an internal investigation and audit, and why would that be?
Well, of course, I was concerned. It had come to my attention through rumors that there were allegations surrounding misuse of public dollars in some sort of procurement process within AHS. Upon hearing this, I did what every minister would do, is ask my officials, starting with my deputy minister, what information there was. He continued to have a conversation with the former CEO of AHS, and the report back I received is that there was no substantive evidence relating my ministry, our actions in my ministry, or Recovery Alberta to any of that. And if there were any concerns that they are being handled within health, I then proceeded to speak to the Minister of Health and reiterate my initial concerns around the allegations I'd heard and the information I received, as it was appropriately within her file. Happily, the Minister of Health and the Premier have been abundantly clear that there will be transparency, there will be independent investigation, there is an internal audit, along with what's being done with the Office of the Governor General with full transparency. Also, with the Auditor General with full transparency, and I will collaborate with that in any way that I'm asked of, as will my department. Beyond that, I understand that these are legal actions currently underway, and I don't know if I can have more substantive comment there. But I feel like any way that I can contribute to making sure we have transparency, where I was concerned with any abuse of funds, I want to make sure that the proper procedures are taking place.
And can I ask the Premier a question? Last week you suggested some of the allegations regarding AHS are due to pushback on the government's mission to expand health care. But pricing from AHS sent to members of your government last year shows some medical contracts are almost twice as much as what it costs in hospital. Why would the government want to pursue contracts that are more expensive than in hospital?
Well, I'll quote the story on the AHS costing. It says it excludes expenses such as diagnostic imaging and implant devices, which is kind of like costing a car without including the engine.
A similar story happened to a young man in the Pacific Northwest about 20 years ago.
So to talk about whether AHS's numbers have credibility, I'll just put them out for you. If they don't include all of the cost of implant devices, facility fees, imaging, then you're not comparing apples to apples. That's why I mentioned the CIHI stats. The Canadian Institute of Health Information is the most credible source of data. It's funded by federal and provincial governments, and we all give proactively information to them so that they can do an apples-to-apples comparison between provinces. Their interpretation and estimates were in 2020 and 2021, so going back several years now, the average cost in an Alberta hospital was just over $9,600 for a knee replacement. Average cost for a hip surgery was $10,500. Now, there may be some good reason why AHS is the most costly provider, because there are surgeries that take place that are much more complex and they need to have overnight stays. But that's the whole reason that we have charter surgical facilities, is so that we can do a large volume of low-risk procedures out of the hospital environment in order to be able to clear the backlog. So when AHS claims that they have a lower cost structure and they only include half the costs, I'm sorry, there's no credibility to that. And I think it goes to why we need to have more transparency, because we can't be making up numbers with Alberta Health Services in order to make it look like charter surgical facilities are more costly. And that's what it looks like to me.
Thank you.